This is Mike Sylvia with New Bedford Guide. We're here to talk about a photo that brought up a little bit of conversation on social media. Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson was at the feast, and you can see the photo on the screen. Like a lot of politicians that came out to the feast, they did a celebration drink at the feast with some Madeira wine. So welcome, Sheriff. So we're going to talk about the photo. So did you have some wine at the feast?
Yeah, of course. It was at the very end of the parade. My press officer was with me. We just finished up. We were heading into my vehicle to go back home, and I asked him if he wanted to have a celebratory small cup of Madeira wine. And we went in to the feast ground. We each were given a cup of 7-ounce cup of the Madeira wine. And we went around for probably 20 to 30 minutes. I was shaking hands, sipping our wine. And when we finished, we left immediately, and that was the end of it. And so, you know, this idea that somehow, I know there were some people who had this impression that, you know, I was drinking on duty. I can see where if you only see a picture, you wonder, well, how long is that person there, and how much are they drinking? But the realities are, that's the truth of what happened. There were those who wanted to make it more than what it was and start to say, well, you know, they're drinking, he's got a sidearm. There's nothing illegal about having my sidearm. It wasn't a violation of any crime. If I had had my shirt over my weapon, they wouldn't have even seen it, and it still wouldn't have made any difference. It wasn't a crime. So look, it's unfortunate that there were obviously either people who had obviously a different agenda and wanted to make it more than what it was, and putting that out virally. And we know who the people are. We know about their backgrounds because I've encountered them before. And so, look, the people of this community know my priorities around public safety. I'm certainly not going to be out, particularly when I'm armed, drinking and gallivanting at the feast. This was a celebratory religious feast that we just had finished a parade, sipped a cup of wine for 20-30 minutes as we were shaking hands with people, and got into the vehicle and went home.
So the people that broke the story is a group called Threw Up in Fall River Radio. I think I looked last, it was over 1,000 shares. So the law of Massachusetts, it says if you're licensed to carrying a gun, and you can't be over the legal limit, basically, which in Massachusetts is .08. So were you over the legal limit?
Of course not. Of course not. You know, we had one cup of the Madeira wine, which is a 7-ounce cup, and that was it. We had 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, where we were gone from the feast after shaking hands, and that's the extent of it.
So it's big on social media right now. You did an interview on the radio with WBSM. Has any police come and taken you away, arrested you for drinking the wine?
No, and there were plenty of New Bedford police officers at the fairgrounds. There were lots and lots of people that I spent time talking with, you know, as we were walking through, shaking hands, and so they would have had every opportunity to see whether or not I was under the influence. And certainly, I think the people of this community know it's not something that I would be doing, going to fairgrounds and drinking excessive alcohol particularly with my sidearm.
Has anything happened since the feast? Any politicians or district attorneys or anything talk to you at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
So you didn't shoot anyone that day?
No, I didn't shoot anyone that
way.
Over? But certainly in that instance, if God forbid something happened at the feast, I would have been able to immediately respond, which I would do.
So if you had to do it over again next year at the feast, would you do it?
Well, certainly. Look, the not thinking that at the time, as I said, this was a quick go in and have a celebratory cup of this Madeira wine and leave. You know, not thinking that someone would take a picture and think somehow we were there gallivanting, drinking, and carousing around the fairgrounds. You know, wouldn't want to give people an opportunity who want to make something more than what it really is to do that. And so, obviously, I'll be thinking very, very carefully in the future about whenever I'm in public as to whether or not I would be, even for a celebratory drink, having people get a chance to suggest that somehow we've done something wrong by having my sidearm on.
Yeah, I think the feast presidents and folks there will tell you that our Constitution was written on Madeira wine, right? George Washington drank it, and those guys did their thing with that. So I guess we'll do a final question, unless someone sends a message in. But you sponsor legislation about ICE, working with ICE, right? So the Massachusetts Supreme Court came out and basically said it's kind of illegal for even the ICE to work with the local police to even work with ICE unless they've committed a major crime. And I know Governor Baker is putting out something, and you put out something. What's an update on that?
Well, first of all, let me, if I can, just to brief you on the decision of the SJC. The SJC, when they made that ruling, chose to ignore the fact that the the court officers at the time that the case was dismissed, which was that the witness never showed up, that even in spite of the fact that the case was dismissed and it was a moot point, they either chose intentionally or didn't think to look at the footnote that the court officers did have a right to hold that person in contradiction to their decision, because the person, the Lund case, the individual's name was Lund, he was given a removal order in 2008, long before this case that got dismissed came forward. And if you don't leave within 90 days of the time the federal government gives you a removal order for being here illegally, it's a felony. So there was no question there was probable cause, even at the dismissal of that case, that the court officer still had standing to hold that individual, because there was probable cause to believe he was a felon since he didn't leave. And that's a felony when you don't. So having said that, we felt it important. Of course, the SJC says there's no law that says law enforcement can hold someone on ICE detainer. The governor's bill did something very important, and I congratulate him right afterwards for it. It basically now will give all of law enforcement the right to hold people on a immigration detainer. That was an important part of his bill. I did speak to him recently, actually, at the Madeira Feast, and told him there are some things that we, I think, need to sort of relook at in the bill. Our bill is very clean, and hopefully his bill can be merged to get to where we are. The limitations within the governor's bill are still cumbersome and difficult in being able to achieve the full impacts of public safety, in making sure somebody doesn't get out that shouldn't get out. The 12-hour rule from the 48-hour rule, there's some problems around that when the courts are closed on weekends that make it impossible to meet the 12-hour restriction. So that's why the 48 was put in there initially. But what I would tell you is that the law should simply be that we have a right to hold people on detainers, and no restrictions around that, because if our federal law enforcement partner, which is ICE, says to us, they give us a detainer, and now with that detainer comes an administrative warrant, that now says that that administrative warrant says we have probable cause to hold this person. We in law enforcement aren't in the position to question what they have. It could be somebody that maybe they have information on national security issues that hasn't committed a crime yet, but is somebody we need to be concerned about, or they need to be concerned about. And much like if New York said something to us about holding somebody that may be a threat to any community, we wouldn't say, well, you're on your own, go figure out where he is. We have him, but we're going to let him go, and you go find him. The additional cost to the taxpayer to track these people down, the risks to people who have lost family members, loved ones, by letting somebody else out that law enforcement should have held but didn't in honoring a federal partner's request, raises questions of liability for the agency that let these people go.
You're in a state with 90% of the legislative is Democrat. What's the chance of getting anything through?
Well, this is this question that you ask is a great question, not just about this bill, but in Congress as well. The decisions ought not to be based on whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican. This is about people's lives. This is about the most fundamental responsibility that we have in government, which is to protect our citizens and our legal residents. No ifs, ands, or buts. That should have no, politics should have no bearing on any of that. Look at the issue for what it is. Are we making our citizens' legal residents safer by not holding these people? Are we putting them at risk? That's the only question that they need to answer. And if you're gonna say that you're gonna allow law enforcement to have less tools to keep the people safe because of your ideology, then you don't belong in public office.
But you have, let's say, like Marty Walsh is a leader in this state, and he's like, use my city hall as a place to hold people. I just don't think you're gonna get anything passed because of the sheer number of politics. I think they want a sanctuary state, and that's what they're pushing for.
Well, I don't think the public really cares what they want.
Sure.
The public cares about what they want for themselves and for their family, and that's what ought to be first and foremost. And with regards to Marty Walsh and Mayor Curtatone out of Somerville and these others around the country, when I was testifying before Congress, and I believe it was Congressman King asked me the question in a follow-up to my testimony, he said, Sheriff, what ought to be done in those instances where elected officials who are sworn to uphold the law say that they're not going to comply with federal law and that they're going to provide harbor and concealment to people who potentially are criminal, illegal aliens here? And my answer to him was real clear. Issue arrest warrants on them. And some people gasped and said, for an elected official? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be held to a different standard and decide and pick and choose what we want to do in following laws, how much or little. And one thing that I think is very important for your viewers and listeners to understand is how the law is made up under preemption and the establishment of the federal government and the state government's rights. FAA, FCC, which you are very familiar with the FCC rules, the Trade Commission, immigration, these are all laws that and agencies established by Congress and controlled by federal law that Congress passes. It is autonomous to the state, and federal law supersedes under the Supremacy Clause, Massachusetts law. So we can't have, for example, the state of Massachusetts saying, you know what, we know the FAA has established flight patterns throughout the country that must be followed because we got air traffic coming in from all different states, and the states have to comply with those FAA flight patterns.
Can't have sanctuary flight paths?
Yeah, Massachusetts can't, exactly. You hit the nail on the head, Mike.
So,
So we can't have each community deciding what flight patterns they want because they don't happen to like the fact that it takes about 10 minutes longer to use the pattern that the federal government has established under their right of FAA control.
yeah.
And it's the same thing with immigration. You want to change those FAA patterns, those flight patterns, you go to Congress and you talk to them and say, listen, this isn't right and this is why we need it changed. And Congress then makes the determination. But you don't tell Congress one way or the other that they have to go down there and argue it. It's their right to make a determination one way or the other.
So that's probably the real way you're going to get any kind of enforcement is really to the federal level with Sessions and the president.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to go back to the feast thing. We had someone ask a question.
Sure.
So Isabel Resendez says, for the normal guy, would it be responsible use? So we let it go. Hell no, it would be hands behind your back. So someone had a LTC and he had can you have a gun out in Massachusetts? Like open for a normal citizen?
There's carry and conceal laws for private citizens, but and law enforcement. And the point is, under the law says that you cannot carry under the influence. It doesn't even stipulate under the influence with regards to point 8, point whatever. It says with determination by the individual, the officer,
okay.
As to whether or not they are. And then they own that. If they are, they're going to have a problem. So that's really how it's set up. And so I know people have said, well, if it was me, this would have happened, that would have happened. You know, every circumstance is different. But in the case of the situation that we were talking about, it's real simple. It's real clear. The law was not broken. We were not there slushing down drinks. This was a celebratory 7-ounce cup of wine that we sipped for half an hour, and off we went, following the parade we just finished.
Yep.
It's plain and simple.
Okay, so we appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
I'd like to have you back in sometime.
Anytime.
Talk some issues. So.
And I think what you all are doing is great. It's going to be great for New Bedford, great for the region. It's really really needed, and I think you're going to pick up a lot of viewers over the course of time because the topics that you you talk about are things that matter to people, including this topic.
Well, we'll see you again
Which matters
soon.
to all of us. Thanks,
See you
Mike.
again on the show.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's it. Thank you for watching.